Hey guys, Youngblood with you for your Should You Buy video on the new Origin 100 series ships that are going to be new starter ships by the luxury manufacturer Origin. You hear luxury and starter ship and you may think that this is a little bit silly, but it's not. It's basically just sleek and clean and kind of just fancier design as opposed to real luxury missing out. They can kind of do both. In this line, you've got three different versions of the ship. You've got the 100i, which is the exploration version. And since we're talking starter ships, the real competition is going to be the Mustang line and the Aurora line. So if this is your exploration version of the ship, you're really competing with probably the Aurora LX and the Mustang Beta. In combat, you have the 125A. Which is going to be mostly competing with the Aurora LN, and I guess the Mustang Delta. The problem there is the Delta is quite a bit more expensive. I guess not all that much more expensive anyway, but I don't necessarily consider the Mustang Delta to be a true starter ship. And then we start getting into the cargo versions, and we start talking about the 135C, which is going to be competing with the Aurora CL or Clipper and the Mustang Alpha. Now, price-wise, these prices are going to be in, War Bond first, and then normal sales second. So for the 100i, it's either 40 or 45. You could also get that one in a game package, though, which is going to be $55 or $60. For the Combat 125A, it's $50 or $55, and for the Cargo 135C, it's $55 or $60. Size-wise, it's 15 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 4 meters tall, basically making it about 30% smaller than the 300 series, give or take. The 300 series, for example, is 23 by 15.5 by 7. Speed on these ships is pretty good, and I think we would kind of expect that. Speed on the 100i is 210 meters per second. On the 125, that jumps up to 230 meters per second. And that's because the 125 is getting enhanced thrusters on board. And then the cargo version is the slowest at 190 meters per second. I don't know why that's actually slower unless you're just factoring in the extra mass that you have to deal with and the way the game kind of handles your speed based on your weight. Cargo-wise, all of these have the ability to carry 2 SCU of cargo internal to the ship, which is kind of nice. The difference is while the 100 and 125 only get 2 SCU of cargo, the 135 has the additional option of carrying a box on the exterior, taking it up to a total of 6 SCU. For comparison purposes, the Mustang and the Aurora CL have a max capacity of 6 SCU as well, so it basically falls directly in line with that. And weaponry on the 100 series is pretty pitiful. On both the 100 and 135, you get 2 size 1 laser cannons. Now, on the 125A, your supposed combat version of this ship, you still only get 2 by size 1 laser cannons. But in addition, you also get 2 by size 1 missiles. That is a measly loadout. It's kind of pathetic, really. So, I mean, unless you're just looking for a ship that can do a little bit more, I'm not looking at this as a great combat option. Now, I think where things get a little bit interesting is when you start talking about what this ship can do. If you just want this as more of a courier, the 125 kind of seems like a direct upgrade to the 100. There's not a lot of downside there. You get faster speed with the addition of missiles. You're not carrying any less cargo, so I don't really see a downside to going that route. So it really just kind of depends. It's not going to be as good of a cargo hauler as the 135 is, for example. So if you're just looking for something, in that smaller entry-level range that can do some cargo, but, you're not sure you want to do full-blown exploration, then I would say probably go for the 125 if this ship is for you. All three of these have their own kind of livery to them. When you start talking about them, the 100i is kind of a white, blue, and gray color scheme. The 125 is black, beige, and gray, my personal favorite. And the 135C is blue, orange, and light blue. Now, all of these versions have what's known as the AIR, or the Adaptive Intake Refinery, which is going to provide you with improved ability to gather kind of a wider range of gas types from space and while in atmosphere that you then can turn into plasma for fuel. Basically making sure that all of these ships have longer range than basically anything else in this size range, which is really great, making you less reliant on your onboard fuel tanks. Now, this isn't giving you unlimited fuel. You're not going to be going forever. It can only do so much, but basically you get much better efficiency than you would on really any other ship that kind of is in this price range and in this category. So, when we start talking about this, I think this most simple thing to do is I like to break things down into kind of what I call the 3 core career types in the game. And when we look at those, especially in the starter line, let's look at exploration first. So we're talking about the Aurora LX, the 100i, or the Mustang Beta. And I think when we start talking about this, I think it's pretty clear that the 100i is going to have flat out the best range possible, meaning that you are going to be going further. So when you're talking about exploration, that's a pretty big benefit, right? Because you don't know how far you're going to have to go and where you're going to end up. So that's going to be a big boon to you. As far as other things, though, we don't know specifics on like the scanning ability, the range of the utilities on board, what things you can look for. Cargo-wise, you do have the ability to put some cargo on space. So if you find something or on board, so if you find something when you're out in space, you can actually bring that along. That's a big benefit when you start talking about exploration. The Beta, I think, probably wins out a little bit in regards to the interior of the ship if you're looking for a homey experience. The Beta kind of looks like a ship that you can live on for an extended period of time, whereas the 100i looks more in the line of a nice experience to be in, but it's probably not like an apartment. So it just kind of depends on what you want to go there, though. But when I look at the exploration versions of all three of these starter ships, I think the 100i says this is probably the best bet. But again, we need to get more details that'll hopefully end up being fleshed out in some of the Q&As that we get later. The next kind of core career I'm going to talk about is combat. And I don't know anything about the durability of the 125, but I hear kind of luxury ship, and I don't necessarily think super durable. As far as the weaponry on board, which is obviously a pretty important part of combat, 2 size 1s and 2 size 1 missiles is really, really terrible. For those of you, that's basically like flying around in a M50, but you have far lower speed, and you're actually a bigger target, I think. So, there's nothing about the 125 that makes me think this thing's going to be a good combat ship, especially when you compare it to the loadout on the Aurora LN, which is bringing more guns, larger weapons, and larger missiles. Not to mention, we know the Aurora LN has good durability. I mean, the LN seems like the no-brainer for the starter ship combat category. Now, again, I mentioned the Delta earlier. The Delta is a really interesting ship. I like the way that the Mustang line flies. I kind of like the idea of the rocket pods that are on board, especially if we end up getting back to the point where you could add more weapons on there instead of the rocket pods. But even then, it kind of gives you that quote-unquote punching above its weight class that CIG likes to talk about. But if we really just hone in on the cheaper starter ships, I do not like the 125 for cargo or for combat. I would say the Aurora LN, if you want to fight, is the best option. But again, what you're missing out on with the LN is a little bit of versatility because you can't carry any cargo on board. So you're really not going to be able to open up to other things because you're not going to be fighting all the time. So the 125 does get a little bit of flexibility there. Now, the 125 is faster than the Aurora. It's going to be more maneuverable than the Aurora, but I think those are really the only two things that are going for it. So if you really are focused in on fighting, Aurora LN. If you want to be able to kind of do some fighting and a little bit of everything else, then probably the 125, but honestly, I look at the 125 as an upgraded 100i. If you like the type of career that a 100 series gives you, this just gives you a little bit more ship. Now, we don't know if there's going to be other things, though, that the 100i has that the 125 doesn't. Like, you may have a more exploration-focused sensors and scanners and avionics on board the 100i that you may miss out on if you go with the 125. But again, their goal is to allow you to customize all these ships to your liking, so you may end up being able to turn a 125 into a 100 series that actually has the same capability but some of the other benefits. So we just need to see. And then the third core career for me here is going to be the cargo starter. And when we look at all of these, you've got the Aurora CL, you've got the Alpha or Mustang Alpha, and you've got the 135 that are all able to carry 6 SCU of cargo. But the 135 gets some internal storage, which is nice because it's probably harder to scan. It's going to be a little bit safer. Nobody's going to blow a box off of your ship. Although it may end up being a little bit less convenient because you're not just strapping a box onto the bottom of your ship and going. You actually have to load that inside of your ship. So again, we'll just need to see. I think it's pretty clear that the 135 is going to be faster than both of these, and I think it's a much better looking ship. But also keep in mind that the Mustang line is going through a rework, so we do need to see what that ends up coming out as, and if that does anything to change, some of the stats or performance of that ship. So in general, when I look at these ships, I like the 100 series, but I think the 125 is a better upgrade. So I kind of recommend the 125, but again, it depends. If you want to use the 125 as more of a more general purpose ship, then I think it's a fine option. And then the 135 I like. Either way, the ships themselves are very, very cool. I love the design. I've almost got this irrational desire to get one of these, even though I would probably never use it outside of just kind of a jumping around the system, almost like some people would probably be using like a Aurora 80, or not an Aurora, an Origin 85X. I think that's an interesting application for this ship that people may like. All in all, I like the ship because it's cheap, it gives people more options, it looks really cool, and the range is good. And if they also come with improved avionics for some of the exploration stuff that they're talking about, then I think that adds some more value and it all of a sudden becomes a recommended ship. But again, I think this ship is going to be for those of you that either just want that quick, small, little daily driver, or you don't have a lot of ships in your fleet and you're wanting to add a little bit of diversity and this can do it for you, then maybe there's some benefit there. But again, we'll just need to kind of wait and see how it all plays out. But for you, you just really need to decide if you can understand what the limitations are in the ship and if that fits into your personal fleet well or not. So that's it for this video. Like always, as soon as we get a Q&A on this ship, I'm going to be covering the heck out of it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more and have yourselves a wonderful day. Take care.